Well, if you're a Rockin' or an R&R subscriber and you've been following these lessons for the past 2 years, I have to say this is the last one in the Rockin' category, but I've perhaps saved one of the best for last. This song is ranked number 2 all time by Rolling Stone magazine of the greatest songs in rock and roll history, right behind Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. Satisfaction was written by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, but I think primarily Richards. The great opening guitar riff and line, which is so signature to the Rolling Stones, was recorded with a Gibson Maestro fuzz box at the time. I've never been quite able to duplicate that sound. It really is an amazingly original sound. Richards wanted to replace it in a later recording. Actually, before the original recording came out, he wanted to replace that fuzzbox guitar line with a horn line. I'm thankful he didn't. Here's the Rolling Stones. Satisfaction, brackets, I can't get no. All right, let's get started. Well, I had a lot of fun researching this song, and the lesson today is sort of built on a combination of the original studio recording and then watching the Stones play this live and seeing some of the things that they did or didn't do live versus the studio recording, but primarily the studio recording, because that's what most people know and are interested in learning. And that song has 3 key components to it, and that's what we're going to tackle. We're going to tackle all 3 of those parts and put them together to create our song lesson. And the first, of course, and signature part there is the absolutely most recognized riff in rock and roll history, the Satisfaction guitar riff, which was, again, very, very overdriven. This isn't the exact sound, but it's pretty close. It's almost a little sharper and treblier than that. If you can find it exactly, by all means use it, because it's a really neat sound. Secondly, we've got the rhythm chording, which if you watch Brian Jones, a lot of people use an acoustic for this, and I think on the original recording it was an acoustic guitar providing a lot of this chording. That kind of stuff, which follows along with that lead riff in terms of how it's played, the rhythm of it. But Brian Jones used, I think, a Firebird in one video I saw, and of course I think that Vox Phantom that he played, and you can see him just playing those 3 chords, and then later on 2 of them in the other section of the song. So there's that rhythm section, and then thirdly, there's the little riffing that Keith Richards does during the verse sections, or during the chorus sections rather. Now, again, live he doesn't do a lot of this. He primarily plays chords. I can't get no satisfaction. You see him just doing a lot of that. But on the original recording, there was a lot of like that connector, and those notes were really quite pronounced, so a lot of reverb on them, and you could really hear them clearly in the song. Other bits that he was doing were a lot harder to hear, because nothing comes through quite as clearly in those days when people were making the studio recordings. And so what I've tried to do is gather up most of that riffing stuff that he does, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to recommend, and it's pretty close. So let's start by talking about the chords. You need a nice ringing open E chord, an open A, and an open D chord. Of the bar variety, you need this E7 chord up here, as opposed to this one, standard E7 down here. We're going to play this one because it's handy to all the little riffing we're going to do. And basically it's just bar on the 7th fret, 3rd fingers on the 9th fret of the 4th string, pinky fingers on the 9th fret of the 2nd string. E7. Then we're going to play this A7, which is just an A bar chord at the 5th fret, and take the pinky off it. It becomes an A7. We slide that up 2 frets, and we get a B7 bar chord. And then finally, there's kind of a E major bar chord. He does a little bit of riffing there. It's really, he doesn't really play the chord. Well, he does in the sense that he plays these 3 notes. That kind of thing. And it's really sliding from that, as opposed to that E7 we played up here. This is a full bar, a full A chord formation on the 9th fret, covering 4, 3, and 2 strings at the 9th fret, and then kind of sliding that from 9 to 7 back to 9. This being an E, this being a D. He's got that in there, in that riffing that I'm going to show you. So again, the chords: open E, open A, open D, E7 bar chord here, A7 bar chord there, B7 bar chord here, and then this little EDE thing. Right there, there, and there. And those are the chords you need for satisfaction. All right, the signature riff. And most notably at the beginning of the song, because as soon as you hear this riff on the radio, it's like instant recognition for 90% of the free world sort of thing. And the only difference as you play this riff throughout the song is one subtle little bit here, and that's the either the ringing or the cutting of this B note. The riff itself begins on the 2nd fret of the 5th string, the B note. I use my first finger for that. Then it travels up like that and back down. Travels from a B to a C sharp, the 4th fret, up to the 5th fret, back to the 4th, and back down. And typically what I'll do here is start with the first finger on the 2nd fret, and then use my 3rd finger on the 4th fret, slide that up, slide the 3rd finger up to the 5th fret, and slide it back down, and then hammer down, a reverse hammer down from the 4th fret back down to my 1st finger on the 2nd fret. So some people play it up here. I'm not a big fan of that because there's a likelihood, a greater likelihood, that your intonation might be a little bit out as you travel up the neck. So I like to make sure that this sounds like it should sound. I'm going to play it on the 5th string, 2nd fret. Now here's what I meant by cutting off or holding this note, sustaining it. This is the intro, for example. In the intro, the first time you play the B note, you let it ring. The second time and the third time you cut it off, and then the 4th time you let it ring. So the intro is played like this. Now if you notice there, the first time I let it ring, and the last time I let it ring. The 2 times in between I cut it off. And that's going to be featured throughout the song. Whenever you play the chorus, hey, hey. Those 2 times, whenever you play that riff twice there, it's a sustained B note. When you play through the verses, when you sing, when I'm driving in my car, and you're playing the riff all the way through that, they're cut. Now I know that seems like a tiny detail, but we're trying to get the song right. There is that difference between how that riff is played in different spots in the song. So let's play through the intro one time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, those nice open jangly rhythm chords, the E, the A, and the D chord, and they come in on the second time. The first time you cut the B note, so if you're playing this, right there, when that cut B comes in, that's your first E strum in that chord. So it sounds like this. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so that would correspond to the intro. So you play through the second, third, and fourth times of the intro riff. Now that sounds nice and bright and loud here, but it's really pretty buried in the original recording. So when I do our picture-in-picture session here, I'm going to turn the volume down on the rhythm a little bit so it sounds a little more like the original. And you have to remember the bass is playing through this too, so that adds another instrument that we won't feature today. Okay, so the rhythm pattern here, the strumming. Another one of those phantom sort of open chords that I throw in there. So we got, and how I'm playing that is down, down, and then down, up. It's a quick change to the D. There's that open. So that's just a little open thing that connects me back to the E chord. Really slowly one time through. Or let's do a playthrough of the intro with the signature riff and the rhythm guitar. 1, 2, 3, 4. So skipping ahead just a little bit in the lesson, when we get into the verses, I was driving in my car, those sections of the song where he's telling the story, we're doing the same thing. We're playing through that sequence along with this. And those are all cut. Okay, so even though we're skipping ahead, because the verse play is connected to the intro play, let's do a playthrough of the first verse. 1, 2.
When I'm driving in my car, and a man comes on the radio, telling me more and more about some useless information, supposed to remind my imagination. I can't get no.
All right, next up is what most guitar sites refer to as the chorus section. I kind of think of it instead as sort of the prequel to each verse, in which Jagger sings, I can't get no, and there's just an accompaniment to that. The acoustic or open-stringed, open-toned guitar that we're playing here, the open chords, jangly chords, it's kind of buried, but it is there, so we'll show you how it goes. And the strumming is pretty straightforward here, something like this. Something like that, and I did slip, didn't tell you about this in the chord section of the song, I slipped a B bar chord in there that happens quickly. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried. So there is that B bar chord that I didn't include earlier. Okay, let's slow that down, take a good look at that simple strumming pattern. right, the last thing to show you before we get to our final playthrough is that little riffing that goes on in the prequel to the verse, if you like. And basically, we're going to start on that E7 bar chord. I can't get no. Okay, so that's the first little riff. It goes from the E7 bar chord. I can't get no. And you can kind of, I'm going to kind of strum that out along with the vocal. It can sort of correspond to that. I can't get no. That first riff is, and I'm sliding up to an E note here on the 5th string, and then going 5, 7, 5 on 6, and then straight down to the A7 chord. So the next little fill, I'm going A, B, E, B. And that sort of matches what the bass is playing, but the guitar plays it as well. So here's what we have so far. I can't get no satisfaction. Okay, then we're going to repeat that. I can't get no satisfaction. Except this time we're just going to stick on the A7. And then we get to the next little part, which is this little... So that little, that's that E and D partial bar chord thing. And the way I'm doing it is barring the 7th fret, and then with my pinky, you can use your 3rd if you like, but my pinky is going to the 9th fret, make an A chord formation, and I'm just starting with it on, sort of hammering on and off. That goes directly to a B7. And then from that B7, I'm just going to do this. So I'm just going to... I'm really just hammering on and off from the 7th fret to the 9th fret on the 6th and 5th strings. You can kind of... like so. So and then that riff one more time, and then down to the A7. And I hear him doing that. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're right back into the original. Right back into that, because that's where the verse starts. Okay, so let's review that whole thing. I can't get no satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction. Though I try, and I try, and I try, and I try. Satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction. Though I try, and I try, and I try, and I try, I can't get no. I can't get no. When I'm watching my TV, and a man comes on and tells me how white my shirts could be, but he can't be a man 'cause he doesn't smoke the same cigarettes as me. I can't get no, no. All right, fine tuning for satisfaction. Well, you notice there isn't a guitar solo in the song, and that speaks volumes to the less is more qualities of satisfaction. You don't need a guitar solo when you have one of the greatest, most recognizable riffs in the world, and all sorts of other neat things going on in that song. We didn't mention the hey, 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 which, of course, when our band plays this song, that's the rally cry for the audiences. Hey, 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 down, da, da, da. Lots of fun with this one. Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, primarily Keith Richards, the Rolling Stones. And if you're a premium subscriber, this little heartfelt happy trails probably won't mean anything to you, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're a weekly or monthly subscriber, or yearly subscriber, this is the last of the Rockin' selections, and I hope one of the best. Happy trails, my friends.